Alfonso Cahero, A Journey into Finance History, Chapter 38, Treaty of Versailles and German Reparations, 1919. In the aftermath of the First World War, the world stood at a crossroads, burdened by the weight of unprecedented devastation and loss. The Treaty of Versailles, signed on June 28, 1919, was meant to bring an end to the conflict and lay the foundations for a lasting peace. However, beneath its veneer of diplomatic triumph lay the seeds of discord that would shape the course of history for decades to come. The Treaty of Versailles was the product of months of negotiations among the Allied powers, primarily the United States, Great Britain, France, and Italy. Germany, the defeated aggressor, was not invited to participate in the drafting of the treaty and was presented with a fait accompli. As the terms of the treaty were unveiled, it became increasingly clear that they were designed to punish and weaken Germany, exacting retribution for the devastation wrought by the war. The treaty imposed heavy financial reparations on Germany, demanding payment for the damages caused during the conflict. It also stripped Germany of its colonial possessions, severely limited the size of its military, and placed strict restrictions on its ability to rearm. Additionally, Germany was forced to accept sole responsibility for the outbreak of the war, a clause that would become a point of contention in the years to come. The harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles stoked resentment and bitterness among the German population, who felt betrayed and humiliated by the terms imposed upon them. The punitive nature of the reparations threatened to cripple Germany's economy, exacerbating the social and political turmoil that had already engulfed the nation in the aftermath of the war. As the dust settled and the world attempted to move forward from the horrors of the Great War, the Treaty of Versailles loomed large as a symbol of the unresolved tensions and unresolved grievances that would ultimately pave the way for the cataclysmic events of the 20th century. The burden of reparations imposed by the Treaty of Versailles weighed heavily on the shoulders of the German people, plunging the nation into a deep economic crisis that would reverberate for years to come. The reparations demanded by the Allies amounted to a staggering sum, intended to compensate the victors for the costs of the war and to punish Germany for its role in instigating the conflict. The reparations were to be paid in the form of cash, goods, and industrial materials, placing an enormous strain on Germany's already fragile economy. In an attempt to meet the onerous demands of the treaty, the German government resorted to drastic measures, including printing money to finance its obligations. This led to hyperinflation and a collapse of the German currency, plunging the country into a state of economic chaos. The hyperinflation crisis of the early 1920s brought widespread suffering and hardship to the German people, wiping out their savings and leaving many destitute. Prices soared, unemployment skyrocketed, and social unrest gripped the nation as ordinary citizens struggled to make ends meet. The economic turmoil fueled political extremism and provided fertile ground for the rise of radical ideologies, including Nazism. Amidst the chaos, the German government found itself caught between a rock and a hard place, torn between the demands of the Allies and the needs of its own people. Efforts to renegotiate the terms of the treaty were met with resistance from the victorious powers, who were reluctant to forgive or forget the grievances of the past. As Germany grappled with the economic and social fallout of the Treaty of Versailles, the stage was set for a period of upheaval and uncertainty that would ultimately reshape the course of world history. The Treaty of Versailles created fertile ground for the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, whose virulent brand of nationalism and anti-Semitism found a receptive audience among the disaffected and disillusioned masses. Hitler, a charismatic and demagogic leader, capitalized on the widespread resentment towards the treaty and the perceived injustices inflicted upon Germany by the Allied powers. Born in Austria in 1889, Hitler served as a soldier during World War I and was deeply embittered by Germany's defeat and the terms of the Treaty of Versailles. He rose to prominence in the aftermath of the war, preaching a message of national revival and racial purity that struck a chord with many Germans who felt marginalized and disenfranchised by the post-war order. Hitler's vision of a racially homogeneous and militarily powerful Greater Germany resonated with millions of Germans who longed for a return to greatness and glory. He skillfully exploited the economic hardship and social upheaval caused by the treaty to rally support for his radical agenda, promising to overturn the oppressive terms of Versailles and restore Germany to its rightful place among the world powers. With his powerful oratory and magnetic personality, Hitler was able to galvanize a mass movement behind him, drawing support from all segments of German society. The Nazi Party grew rapidly in size and influence, appealing to both the urban middle class and the rural peasantry with its message of national renewal and social justice. By the early 1930s, Hitler's grip on power was secure, and he set about implementing his radical agenda with ruthless efficiency. The Treaty of Versailles, which had been intended to prevent future conflict and promote lasting peace, had unwittingly paved the way for the ascendance of one of history's most notorious tyrants, setting the stage for the horrors of the Second World War. The Treaty of Versailles imposed strict limitations on the size and capabilities of the German military, demilitarizing the Rhineland and prohibiting Germany from possessing certain types of weapons and military equipment. However, in the years following the signing of the treaty, Germany embarked on a clandestine program of rearmament and military expansion, flouting the restrictions imposed upon it by the Allied powers. Under the leadership of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, Germany began to systematically dismantle the constraints of Versailles and rebuild its military capabilities in defiance of international law. The remilitarization of the Rhineland in 1936 represented a brazen violation of the treaty and a clear signal of Germany's aggressive intentions. Hitler's decision to remilitarize the Rhineland was a calculated gamble, intended to test the resolve of the Allied powers and gauge their willingness to confront German expansionism. To his surprise and delight, the response from Britain and France was muted, emboldening Hitler to push the boundaries of the treaty even further. Buoyed by his success in the Rhineland, Hitler continued to expand and modernize the German military, pouring resources into the development of new weapons and technologies. The Luftwaffe, Germany's air force, was rapidly expanded, while the army and navy underwent extensive reorganization and rearmament. The Allied powers, preoccupied with their own domestic concerns and eager to avoid another catastrophic conflict, proved unwilling to challenge Hitler's aggression until it was too late. By the time they realized the full extent of Germany's rearmament efforts, it was clear that the Treaty of Versailles had failed to prevent the resurgence of German militarism and the onset of another world war. The Treaty of Versailles left a lasting legacy that continues to shape the geopolitical landscape of the modern world. Conceived in the aftermath of one of the deadliest conflicts in human history, the treaty was intended to prevent future wars and promote lasting peace through the imposition of punitive measures on the defeated aggressor. However, the harsh terms of the treaty only served to sow the seeds of resentment and bitterness among the German people, fueling nationalist fervor and providing fertile ground for the rise of extremist ideologies such as Nazism. The economic and social upheaval caused by the treaty created a breeding ground for political instability and radicalization, paving the way for the cataclysmic events of the 20th century. The failure of the Treaty of Versailles to achieve its intended objectives serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of punitive diplomacy and the importance of addressing the underlying causes of conflict. By imposing draconian reparations on Germany and refusing to engage in genuine dialogue and reconciliation, the Allied powers inadvertently laid the groundwork for another devastating world war. In the decades that followed the signing of the treaty, the international community grappled with the consequences of Versailles and sought to learn from its mistakes. Efforts were made to promote greater cooperation and understanding among nations, culminating in the establishment of the United Nations and other multilateral institutions dedicated to the maintenance of peace and security. Despite its shortcomings and the immense human suffering it unleashed, the Treaty of Versailles remains a pivotal moment in world history, serving as a stark reminder of the dangers of hubris and the folly of attempting to impose peace through coercion and punishment alone. The aftermath of the First World War left Europe in ruins, with millions dead, cities destroyed, and economies shattered. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in the wake of the conflict, sought to address the grievances of the victors and impose accountability on the defeated powers. However, The treaty's punitive terms and harsh reparations only served to exacerbate the underlying tensions and resentments that had fueled the war in the first place.